Hi everybody, I just wanted to do a quick tutorial on how to apply alcohol ink to a tumbler. Let me just make sure that everything's in the frame. The tumbler already has a glitter base, so this will be the layer on top of the glitter. My epoxy is already mixed. It is a little bit warm, so I'm running out of time. The glitter that we have on here is called Shattered Opal. It's really pretty. And oh, it's really, really pretty, but it's also sticking up in a couple of places, which is why I'm applying the glitter or the epoxy directly to the cup when I don't normally do that because I'm trying to keep it from coming off. But I may not be able to entirely avoid that. So I'm just going to have to do it this way instead. I usually, when I deal with alcohol inks, I try to apply the epoxy when it's a little bit thinner. Once it thickens up, it's a little bit harder to get to move. So this hopefully will not be an exercise in futility here. And if I sound a little muffled, it's because I have a respirator mask on. I thought it would be pretty to do some blues and purples and pinks over an opal base because they should likely shine through a little bit, or the glitter will probably shine through a little bit. So hopefully I don't have to stop and make more epoxy. If your epoxy gets too set or too thick, sometimes if you torch it a little, it gives you a little bit more working time. I'm using KS resin. KS resin does best when you let it thicken up just a little bit. It reduces the tendency for the bubbles. So unfortunately I was working on a couple of other cups and I probably should have started with this one. But we'll make it work even if we just have to mix up some more epoxy. So I have done alcohol inks over a solid color, but never over glitter. Well, that's not entirely true. I haven't done just alcohol ink over glitter. I've done it on Galaxy cups. And it always shines through in a really nice way to give it some depth. So that's kind of what I'm hoping we're going to see here. Unfortunately, we may have to stop and mix up some more epoxy. Hopefully not, though. This is really pretty glitter. It's the Shattered Opal is not conventional hexagon shape. It's cut up to look like glass. So it doesn't lay perfectly flat, which is okay. But it's just got this really pretty finish. So I really should not have saved this one for last. I was working on 3 other cups and I wanted to do this one last because I knew if I did this tutorial that the others might get too far along. But I should have done this one first. Oh well, we learn. Unfortunately, I'm pulling up my glitter here. This top edge is a little bit difficult because it goes in. This is a 24 ounce. This is an Ozark Trail tumbler. And I'm also going to do one like this with a glitter base as a hydro dip, which I've never done before. So I'm hoping to get that on video too. I just did the base for it a little bit ago. It's very thick, so I have a feeling we're going to need to mix up some more epoxy, but let's see. See if we can get it coated and see how we do. I am going to torch it a little bit and see if I can give us a little leeway time. Some of it doesn't even have epoxy yet. That helped us a little. The good thing about alcohol inks is if we were to set this and get the ink on and the ink doesn't run, we could mix up more epoxy and put it on top and still get there. So that's the fun thing about doing these, is you kind of see what you would do real time to rescue something, which we may have to do. And honestly, we might need more epoxy anyway, just because of the thickness of the glitter. So maybe we'll just mix up some more really quick. That way I'll end up taking more off than covering it up. I did try to pat this down a little bit with my glove when I was putting it on, but it was very fine, and so it comes up a little bit easier. As you can see, it's beautiful though. Hope everybody had a really good Christmas. It's hard to believe another Christmas has come and gone already. We were so busy getting ready for Christmas that it was nearly impossible to do tutorials and painting and all those other things that we would normally really like to do. I even was trying to do them with filling orders and stuff, but it got to the point where we were so backed up on time that we were cutting it close on making our Christmas gifts. And so, okay, we are going to make a little bit more, I think. And I hate to do that with you guys on camera, but that's what we're going to do. So, forgive me that my bottles are so dirty. I don't know how people keep their epoxy bottles so perfectly clean. Epoxy is such a messy, messy process that I just think the reality of it getting dirty is just something you kind of come to expect, you know? So I think I'm just going to do 10 mLs. That may be too much. But I want to have enough on here where it'll coat the glitter, which, as you can see, maybe you can see, is pretty chunky. So, and have enough where we can get that alcohol ink to move. So we might be able to do that in a little bit less. This is about 7.5. That's part A. Part B. I like to buy these condiment containers from the Dollar Tree. They don't always have them though. They're really great for paint and this. And then, you know, you're not too sad when you end up having to chunk one. This is actually 5 mLs. It's really important that they be as even as possible because they won't set if they're not. So, looks like we have about 7, roughly. Hopefully that's enough. I hate to overmix it because I don't have any coasters that I need to put it on. Most of my earring molds are full. I need to catch up on some of that stuff. And I hate to waste epoxy. We had a really fun time. My husband made a kitchen table and we did an epoxy pour with mica over it. Next time we do something like that, we're going to try to either go live or post it to YouTube, but it was a lot of fun. We had we'd never built a table like that size before, and it was really beautiful. It's a kitchen table, dining room table. And then after it had a coat of resin, we did a kind of a mica abstract pour. And so I may not have gotten enough epoxy this time either. I got the cocktail stirrers that are stainless steel for Christmas so that I would not create more bubbles with my popsicle sticks, but here I am not using my Christmas gift and making my life more difficult. That's okay. Just not quite reorganized from Christmas yet. So let's see. Let's see if we can make this work. Hopefully we don't have to turn around and make more. I'm just gonna try to loosen this one up a little bit. You don't want to torch it in one spot too long. Same with a heat gun. I'm just trying to get it to be a little bit more flexible. There are some places that are not covered, so I'm trying to make sure I don't actually burn the glitter. I wanted to mix up a small batch because I want it to mix together quickly so that we can get it on here. I'm not really worried about bubbles, as you can see by my vigorous stirring, because when we mix the alcohol inks, we're going to hit it with the heat gun anyway. But I need to make sure I have enough epoxy for the epoxy to move, and that's what I'm beginning to be a little bit concerned about, is we may not, because there's such a heavy glitter base on here. So if you don't want to watch me mix epoxy, I respect that. Just fast forward. I didn't want to start and stop because of the, I already have stuff all over my hands, so I'm just gonna spread this out a little bit, and then I'm gonna torch it again to get it to kind of gel together. See, there's some spots here that don't have any epoxy yet over the glitter. So this will actually not move as easily as you would normally see epoxy move with alcohol ink because of it being so set. So we'll see how it goes. I think we've got it covered now, but it's already really tacky, so we're going to see if it'll work. If not, like I said, alcohol inks are fairly forgiving. You can usually fix it. What I don't want to do is mix up way too much epoxy and just waste it. I even resined an entire 10 by 10 painting yesterday with extra epoxy. I was pondering putting resin on it anyway, because it had some colors that were really cool from a vase pour, and I knew that the colors would pop a little bit better with under epoxy than they were just if I just varnished it. And since it was a 10 by 10 and didn't have any silicone in it, I knew it wouldn't be as big of a pain to resin it. Now we do have plenty of epoxy on here at this point, so we might just be able to work with what we've got. I definitely still have some spiky glitter, so this will either take some sanding or some more epoxy later on, but that's fine. No big deal. I don't know how well you guys can see that pretty opal glitter. So pretty. Ooh. I almost dumped you in the cup. So this is starting to thicken up a little bit. So the most important thing when you deal with inks, and sometimes you don't know, the colors won't go well together until you put them next to each other, is, you know, just like with painting or anything else, you want to pick colors next to each other that can blend. You know, you don't want to put a yellow next to a black necessarily, because they can turn green. The alcohol inks blend with one another, and so they blend with the pigments that are in the ink and so you want them to blend with like-minded colors as much as you can. Sometimes colors that do go together and make a prettier color, or make, you know, yellow and blue make green or whatever, still don't work together when you think they're going to. I was working on a Joker cup that somebody ordered, and I was trying to do purple and black and green, and I put this green on and it mixed with the purple and turned like brown. It was horrible, so I had to use a completely different color green than the one I actually got specifically for that. So there are some bubbles in here. I'm not really very worried because we're going to hit this with the heat gun, which is why I keep putting the remnants of this epoxy on here, because we want enough epoxy on here where it's going to run a little bit. Not where it's going to be mounded up and all that, but where it'll run a little bit easier. And then I'm using a mixture of Pinata and Tim Holtz alcohol inks. I'm primarily using reds and purples and blues and like a dark teal and a light teal. So I'm going to try to group them together. They're very dirty, as you can see. I use this one a lot with Galaxy tumblers. So, you know, I don't know how people manage to keep their stuff from getting dirty. That's just, I don't know if you're doing it right, if all your stuff is that clean. We're going to start off with, this is some kind of purple from Pinata. I think it's passion purple. And again, we want to keep them pretty close to the color family, so we're going to do a blue violet. Maybe not right next to it. That was a pretty similar color. So they're at first going to look like little caterpillars. They look kind of like a hairy caterpillar. I'm going to introduce a little pink. This is Senorita Magenta from Pinata. It's very similar to this wild plum color from Tim Holtz. You can already see where the ink is. Okay, I may not be able to get this one open. That, hold on just a second. That, the glitter shines through, which is exactly what I was hoping for. Love it when things actually do what you want them to do. Doesn't happen very often. Beautiful color. I was kind of wrong about the wild plum. I think wild plum is a little bit more pink. So far we don't have anything crazy. You can also separate colors that don't go very well together with white. So you might see me throw a little white in the mix. So far these colors don't have a poor reaction to one another. So I'm not too afraid to use those. We're going to use a little bit of, I want to do some blue, but I am a little bit afraid of how it's going to react to some of the nearby friends. So I'm going to put it separately in a couple of spots. Let's see, it's about to hit the pink. Let's see what happens. Not too crazy. Turned a little purple. So now we know that's relatively safe. Put a little on the bottom. It did okay with the purple. All right. Not too shabby. Let's put some right here. I have other blues too, so I don't want to completely dominate. I don't know if I want to use red or not. This is Wild Plum. It actually is really similar to the magenta color. So we won't go too crazy with it. Oops. I have more of this one than I do. There are times that the Pinata inks are more vibrant, but not all the time. This is Holtz Indigo. I use this one on cups a lot. And it mixes pretty well with other colors. And I go through quite a few of these. And let's try a little pink. I don't know if it's different enough from the magenta or not. Oh, it is. Ooh, that may not have been a good idea to put it right there. But let's give it a shot. Oops, I kind of overpowered the blue for a second. The one I'm a little nervous about is this teal one. Sorry, that was my dog. I think the teal works well with the blues. I haven't added any white yet, and I might should, but I kind of don't want to if I don't need to. And then my dogs are playing with my husband if you hear them make noise. Ooh, let's see. So that was Stream, and this is Aquamarine, also by Holtz. This is very similar to the Baja Blue from Pinata. They're going to start to run together. It's okay. It's what you want them to do. And we might have enough on here to hit it with some heat and see what it does. I think I'm going to fill in a little bit more purple. See, this one is amethyst, so it actually looks a lot like indigo. The top part is a little naked. So I can't decide if I want to put red in here or not. A little flamingo. It's not really red, it's more of a coral color. It didn't react super great to that green, but it didn't do terrible. I saw this really cool cup when I first started doing cups that somebody did, and it had a ton of different colors on it, and it was really cool looking. But I didn't want to potentially make this so busy that it wasn't pretty anymore. Purple Twilight. We haven't used any Purple Twilight. So I have a feeling that the blues are going to overtake the pink and the magenta. So let's see. So what we're going to do really quick, just to kind of gauge where we are, is use a heat gun. This is an embossing gun. It's not a full-blown heat gun because those I find give you too much output. You just want to hit it really quickly and let it start to run. And it's going to run more than it looks like at first. You can break up larger chunks of colors so they run together. And it's going to continue to run, so don't go too crazy. You can see it starting to go together. glad we did a glitter base. It's really pretty. Now it's still going to continue to run, but I can see some places where we want to fill in some color. So now notice it's running a lot faster because your epoxy is hot, or hotter than it was. So you can start to fill in where you don't seem to have enough color, or you don't have enough of what you were looking for. It doesn't seem like we have enough epoxy at the top, which kind of concerns me a little bit. But I don't know that I have enough in here to do anything about that. I can tell because it's kind of pulling away from the edge. Now one thing I will say is you won't want this to be your last layer of epoxy because alcohol inks kind of thin out your epoxy, so they're not the perfect way to finish it necessarily. So, but you see how they're starting to run together and kind of bleed into different colors, and they get this kind of cool wispy edge. Uh-oh, that may not have been a good move. They look really cool together. And if they do any like little pitting in the epoxy, then you've got glitter under there. So it's not like it's going to go through to the stainless steel and look ugly or anything. That's kind of why we did that, because like this right here, I'm cool with that. If it wants to do that, I'm happy for it too. I like kind of the blend of the light and the dark colors. I think that's really cool. I would like to cover up that top part a little bit better. But again, there's glitter under there, so as long as it doesn't look like tacky, I don't really mind that it's not perfectly covered. But alcohol reacts with epoxy, so it does tend to saturate a surface in a little bit of a different way than you might intend, and so you will want to come and do a final, at least I would, a final coat of epoxy before you kind of call this done. Now I'm tempted to keep adding inks. I have kind of a tendency to overwork things. I do that with paintings, I do it with cups. Like it'll just need a little hint of something and I'll be like, oh, and then I'll kill it. So my family already knows, and so they tell me, leave it alone, walk away. So this might be one of those times. I think we probably need to hit it with a little bit more heat. Add a little bit more of this aquamarine color. That's a pretty cool color. It's like a teal. Come on. The bottom needs a little love. You can't really see that from where you are, I'm sure. But see how even after we stop messing with it, it continues to swirl, which is what makes me think I need to hit it with heat one more time and leave it alone and let it do what it's going to do. And thankfully we used colors that go well together, so no matter what, it should be pretty. And that glitter's shining through really beautifully. I even thought about making it intentionally opaque. Not opaque, transparent, and leaving some kind of peekaboo patches because of how beautiful that glitter is. Because it seems like a shame to cover it up, but it glistens really beautifully in between the inks anyway. So I think I'm just going to put all the lids on and hit it with some heat. You can probably see the same places that I can see where the glitter's still sticking out. And I'm going to have to sand that or file it or whatever. This is the part that bothers me a little bit, but I could also always touch that up with the final coat. Overworked it a little bit. The best thing to do when it's swirling like that is hit it really quick and then pull it back. Don't leave the heat on there. I have had it glob up before, and it's pretty hot in that one spot. You can also hit the bottom and let it swirl a little bit. I typically will try to hit it where it's overly concentrated, or maybe there's too much color in one area. It kind of feels like we need to let it alone. There's a loose piece of glitter in there. I don't know, I'm kind of tempted to let it alone. I'm going to let it flow a little bit more. This is pretty concentrated right here. As I sort of suspected, the red and the pink are getting lost in the blue, which is okay. Probably need to stop messing with it. You can see it's just kind of continuing to do its thing. And it's still moving, so the epoxy is hot. So at this point, you could really cook it and not mean to do that. So I think it's best to leave it alone. I don't mind that some glitter is peeking through. I think it lightens it up. I really thought that the blue and the purples would overpower it, and it sort of did, but that's okay. You can always kind of clean it up with the last coat, but it'll continue to move. The best thing to do is to try to break